Audio log begin. This is Captain Zachary Lloyd, United States Army Anchorage, Alaska Security Detachment. We are approximately 2 hours into the Chinese assault on this outpost. We're being shelled non-stop, indiscriminately. The entire base is under bombardment from the Chinese ships, and they don't care who they hit. All accounts indicate they've actually killed more of their own men than ours. They just do not seem to care about their own troops at all. At this rate, the entire mountain will be a graveyard in less than an hour, and then the Chinese will just move in and set up shop. God help us. God help America.
Operation Anchorage was the first DLC to be released for Fallout 3. Bursting into our lives back in January of 2009, the DLC would offer some insight into the resource wars of the Fallout universe. Today, we will take a look at what Operation Anchorage has to offer, going over the story of the add-on, and then I will provide my take on how I think it holds up, what it means to the Fallout series, and my overall opinion on the DLC as a whole. Anchorage, Alaska as a location is very pivotal to the Fallout series as a whole. It's here that the US and China fought the Battle of Anchorage, kicked off by the Chinese invasion of Alaska in 2066. This battle would last more than a decade and saw the US losing significant ground until the game-changing T-45 series power armor suits were deployed, which stopped China in its tracks. All of this kicked off after a rapidly deteriorating relationship between the US and China that led to increased military presence in Alaska to protect from a Chinese-led invasion from across the Bering Strait. China would seize a deep-sea oil deposit in the Pacific Ocean. With oil reserves being so scarce, this would be a monumental move. US Special Ops would allegedly sabotage this reserve, which sent the already tense situation between the two military juggernauts into an incredible downward spiral. China would march into Alaska, starting the Sino-American War. These troops, under the command of General Jin Kui, a man just as famous for his cruelty as he is for his effective military tactics, would take control of Alaska's oil pipelines and reserves. And this is about where the bulk of Operation Anchorage starts off. But there are a few more things to cover before we dive into the battle proper. The DLC focuses on a mission in progress within the Brotherhood Outcasts. Now, I've always been fond of the Brotherhood Outcasts, as they remind me of better times when it comes to the Brotherhood of Steel as a whole. The faction more embodies the traditional views of the Brotherhood from the classic games. They don't like outsiders, and their only interest is getting tech from around the waist, especially when it comes to keeping that tech out of the reach of tribals and other persons who may not have the aptitude required to use such things. After listening to the Outcast distress signal, we will find ourselves en route to Bailey's Crossroads. This is a small district in the capital wasteland that is overrun by super mutants, and we can see the Outcasts have their hands full with them. Fighting our way through the mutant horde, we will finally reach the Outcast outpost. Seems they have set up in the old Virtual Strategic Solutions compound. VSS is responsible for the simulation pod that we will eventually find ourselves in. VSS was also under contract with the US Army, making the locked armory stand out to the Brotherhood Outcasts, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Once at the outpost, we can get a taste of the Outcast signature hospitality.
Alright, loco, mind explaining what you're doing here? How the hell did you hear my signal? It's not broadcast on a standard frequency. Oh, I see. You got one of those wrist-mounted computers. Well, isn't that interesting? Isn't that fancy? Listen, kid, maybe you could help us out. We've been looking for someone like you. Why don't you head inside and talk to Protector McGraw? I'll radio ahead and let him know you're coming.
After the warm welcome, we will find out that indeed the Outcasts are interested in whatever's in the armory here at the VSS compound. Still, they have had a hell of a time trying to get in. It's locked tight, and the only way to unlock it seems to be completing the training simulation for Operation Anchorage. With a computer device, like the handy Pip-Boy 3000 we have on our wrist, one could complete the training and then unlock the armory. And after some failed attempts, the Outcasts are pretty desperate and are willing to let a wasteland savage have a go at it, even offering a share of the gear. Putting on the neural interface suit, we can finally enter the pod and get a glimpse at the Sino-American War for ourselves, entering the front lines of Operation Anchorage.
It's the time of the season when love runs high. In this time, give it to me easy and let me try with pleasured hands to take you in
We start on the cliffs of Anchorage, covered in frost and dazed from a doozy of a fall. Seems we parachuted onto these cliffs and had a bit of a rough landing. We are joined by Sergeant Benjamin Montgomery, a very likable companion. He will be with us through most of our time in Alaska. After a brief breakdown, Benji will send us out to either go in guns blazing or try to sneak our way in. It's important to note that Operation Anchorage as a DLC is more action-based than Fallout normally is. There is not a whole lot of choices to be made here, and it runs pretty linearly. This may be because it's supposed to be a simulation, much like how the Mandarin being spoken by the Chinese troops and Jing Kui sound intelligible to native speakers. The simulation was made by Americans who likely did not know the language and just made sounds they thought sounded similar. Even the choice of going in loud or quiet isn't real, as you will be discovered at some point, and then it almost acts like a Call of Duty clone throughout. This isn't a knock against the DLC, it's just an observation. Personally, I enjoy the change of pace Operation Anchorage offers. The first objective is to get through the Chinese forces on the cliffs. While doing so, another big part of this DLC will become apparent. The use of stim packs and looting has gone away with. To heal, we can interact with health dispensers, and weapons can be found throughout the map, with ammo dispensers filling up any guns we have in our inventory, though for some reason, ham radios can still be interacted with. Making our way through the caves, we can recover a Gauss rifle from a fallen brother. Seems his parachuting trip went even worse than ours. The Gauss rifle is a powerful weapon and should not be taken lightly. We can find ammo for it lying around the other dispensers throughout Anchorage. Once inside, we can rendezvous with Benji.
Goddamn, this place is swarming with Reds. I almost didn't make it. Yeah, I almost bought it out on the cliffs. Didn't know the Reds were so handy with a sniper rifle. So, what's the situation? We clear to blow the hell out of this place? I got your 6.
The 3 artillery guns are the main targets now. Along the way, we can find an intel suitcase. There are 10 of these in total in Operation Anchorage. Finding all of them will earn you the Covert Ops perk, granting a +3 to the science, small guns, and lockpick skills. This isn't a walkthrough, so I won't be showing you all of the locations. But something of note is that these suitcases are often stored with lore bits that we can find via terminals or holotapes. This is a wonderful way to flesh out some lore with the surrounding conflict.
Molly, I hope this tape gets to you, some way, somehow. I don't have a lot of time, but you need to know what happened to me. The early reports weren't bullshit. The Chinese are here. As in, they're invading Anchorage in force, right now. This is the real deal. It makes Pearl Harbor look like an Academy exercise. I've never seen so many goddamn warships. Sergeant Lowry has ordered the platoon to assemble in the mess in 15 minutes. The plan is to dig in on the cliffs and slow the Chinese advance until the civilian contractors can evacuate. And then we hold the line for as long as we can. I talked to Durney, Cielo, and Dallas, and we all agreed surrender is not an option. I never told you, but that night in Cleveland, on the Ferris wheel, that was when I fell in love with you. Goodbye, Molly. I'm sorry. This is Private First Class Henry Hodges, signing out.
Moving through the facility, you may catch a glimmer in your eye. This is likely the Crimson Dragoon, China's Special Operations Force. They use the high-gi stealth armor, which acts like a stealth boy when sneaking, making them virtually invisible to the naked eye. This, paired with their razor-sharp Chinese officer swords, makes for a deadly combination. The People's Liberation Army's snipers use the same armor, making them one of the biggest threats in Anchorage. After blasting through some more Reds, we can finally see what we're up against. These artillery guns are giving Anchorage a proper fucking and causing more than just headaches for our boys. Setting explosive charges on them, we can dispatch them one by one. Keep your distance though, because when they go off, they really go off. After blowing the guns sky high, we head to the base to meet General Constantine Chase. The general was a bit rough around the edges, and the simulation counterpart is no different. While Chase has been commended for his lead role in the Anchorage campaign, his methods were not. The most considerable blowback coming from his wanton use of the drug Psycho, which his R&D company developed. General Chase would also give the go-ahead on the unofficial implementation of the Chinese invasion protocol into Vault 112's Tranquility Lane simulation, after being asked by Stanulus Braun, though on paper, this was denied. Here in the simulation, Chase will promote you and give you control over a strike team, as well as give a rundown on what needs to be done.
Okay, pay attention, soldier. I'm only gonna go through this once. We've set up our new field HQ down here. The area is pretty secure now that the artillery guns are gone. The first of the 3 targets we need to handle is their Chimera depot over here. Be careful on your approach. You're gonna have to get through the enemy camp on the way. Once you breach the perimeter of the depot, You need to take out both of the main fuel tanks. Your second target is all the way over here. The Chinese have set up a listening post set into the side of Callaway Ridge. There are some abandoned mines along the route, so keep your eyes and ears open. It's a great place for an ambush. You need to clear the place of personnel, so we can get our intelligence boys in there to start decoding. Once the first 2 targets are down, the last obstacle standing in the way is their damn pulse field. You need to cross it, then cause it to overload, so we can mop up the place with the T-51Bs. Let me warn you now, unless you have some sort of a death wish, I wouldn't even go near the field until the first 2 targets are down. Lieutenant Morgan will be your eyes and ears for Operation Anchorage, so get everything else you need from him. Uncle Sam's invested a lot of money turning you into a killing machine. Time to pay him back. Dismissed!
Using the terminals, we can order our team and pick our loadout. Outside, we can talk to Benji to control this team and get our gear from the quartermaster. With all that set, it's off to the first objective, the mining town. The main focus here is clearing the town of commie forces, as well as rescuing any American troops we find along the way. We have to be on the lookout for missile units, flamer units, and snipers as we inch closer to the objective. After the smoke is cleared, and so are the commies, we can report back to HQ to get prepared for the next target, the Chinese ice camp. As expected, the camp is overrun with Chinese forces, and the main bit holds one of their fiercest weapons, the Chimera tank. Moving through, we finally hit the base proper. Inside, we need to plant explosives on the fuel reserves. Blowing them up will make using the Chimera tanks that much harder for the Chinese army, and we will have to come face to face with one of these bad boys, but stopping it at this point isn't such an arduous task. After both fuel reserves have been destroyed, it's time to report back to base before our final objective, the pulse field. Reaching the pulse field requires going through the trenches, and the Reds are throwing everything they got at us to keep us back. By now, you are used to the formula. Clear out the Chinese forces from the area and then push towards the objective. As we get closer, reinforcements arrive in the form of power armor units. Approaching the field would be a death sentence, so it's best to just head to the switch and shut it down. Now, all that's left is confronting Jin Kui inside the Chinese HQ. If you're skilled in the art of speech, we can convince the general that he has already lost, prompting him to kill himself. For those that lack that skill, it will be a fight. While not too hard to put down, Jin Kui and his troops are worthy adversaries. Once all the smoke is cleared, General Chase will appear and dismiss us from the simulation. We have just completed the Operation Anchorage training. Now we can get the spoils of war hidden behind the secure blast door, the prize piece being a mint condition set of winterized T-51B power armor. It is important to note that completing the Operation Anchorage DLC will reward the player with the power armor training perk, making this DLC a tremendous first stop during any playthrough. This armor seems indestructible to the naked eye, but in fact, it's bugged. The hit points for the power armor register at nearly 10 million, due to the game giving the player the simulation version rather than the intended wasteland version. Top tier armor, top tier reward. We will also find a Gauss rifle, trench knife, Chinese stealth armor, and Jin Kui's shock sword among other goodies. One of the most OP loadouts you can have in Fallout 3 is the winterized T-51B power armor and Jin Kui's shock sword. Use your power wisely. Make sure to loot fast as the outcasts are having a bit of a meltdown outside the armory. Seems that Sibley isn't such a fan of a dirty outsider getting their hands on such mint gear. McGraw pushes back, and a fight ensues. My take is that you want to keep the friendlies alive, so I always try to make sure that McGraw and Olin make it out through the battle. With that, the DLC comes to a close. We have some of the best gear in Fallout 3 at this point, and if you did it the right way, you should have the rest of the main game ahead of you. Personally, after leaving Vault 101, I discover Megaton and then beeline to the start of this DLC. I feel naked without the gear it provides at this point. This is a tactic I highly recommend to everyone who plays Fallout 3. As far as my take on the DLC as a whole, I like Operation Anchorage. It garnered criticism from fans for being too much of a departure from the traditional Fallout experience, but like I said before, this is actually something I like about it. The change of pace can be refreshing, and the constant combat in Anchorage is a great way to hone your skills with weapons and level up consistently. More importantly, looking firsthand at what the resource wars looked like in the Fallout universe is a real treat, as the pre-war and wartime areas of the lore are always fascinating to me. Using a VR pod to simulate this type of thing is something I would love to see more of in the Fallout series. You don't go into Operation Anchorage looking for the same exploration and RPG storylines we are accustomed to in the Fallout series. It offers a peek at the war-torn Alaskan front lines, and I think it pulls it off amazingly. The change of scenery and weather adds a lot to the vibe of this DLC as well. Moving from the desolate hellscape of the capital wasteland to pre-war Alaska is quite the transition, and it makes for an incredible backdrop for the action Anchorage holds. Finally, I think the rewards alone are worth the maybe 2 hours that this DLC will take to complete if you're going slow. The power armor is my favorite in Fallout 3. The frost-covered exterior always looked fantastic to me. The weapons from the armory are a great addition to the game, and the shock sword may just be my favorite melee weapon in the series. And that might be pushing it a little far, but it is for sure my favorite in Fallout 3. Operation Anchorage acts as a terrific introduction to add-on content in the Fallout series, and it's hardly the best of the group. All of Fallout 3's DLCs delivered their own unique brand of great content. Operation Anchorage provides an insight I never thought possible into the pre-war lore of the Fallout series, and it's worth playing every single playthrough. So dress warm and mind the cliff, soldier. Thank you for checking out my video essay on the Operation Anchorage DLC for Fallout 3, and I hope you enjoyed it. I want to send a thanks to my supporters, but a big shout out to my largest supporters: Ian Raleigh, Nomad, Popo Hum, Adam Souza, Enclave Blurred, Fireflare, JP Rivera, Zero Soder, Excel Up, Thomas, Daniel Atalano, Techie, Billy Joe Jimbob, Marcus Jacobstown, Legendary Angel 94, Ruben Atwood, Phil Starsick, and Edgy. Thank you guys so much. I couldn't do it without you. I hope to catch you on the next one. It has been Mantis.
I gotta testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day you die, you gon' touch the sky. You gon' touch the sky, baby girl. Testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day you die. Yeah.